health issues, and half of the mental illness that has been detected begins at the tender age of 14. And I'm sure these are statistics that many parents would be interested in, particularly to look at and just ask yourself the question as to whether your child might be going through some of those mental health issues. And to have this discussion, we have a panel this morning that I'm going to introduce. We're joined by Edward Moito, who's a counselor. We have John Camara, who's the founder of Afya Record, and we're going to be looking at how Afya Records is coming into this. But we also have Dr. Catherine Siengo Mutisia, who is a psychologist, and that's a discussion we're going to have. Remember, you're welcome to participate in this discussion and let us know any challenges or any questions that you may have via social media. The hashtag is KTN Morning Express. If you'd like to tweet, you can reach out to us on KTN News, or you can also tweet me directly, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga or Tricks at Tricks Ingado. Let's get into the discussion, and let me start with you, Edward Moito. And the question here is, please highlight some of the common mental challenges that our youth may be going through, because some of them may be very subtle and we may not even consider them to be mental challenges.
Indeed. Thank you very much for hosting me here today as we prepare for the Mental Health Awareness Day that will take forth on the 10th of this month. My name is Edward Githaiga. I'm a youth counselor. Your question is very right and very put in a good way. The youth actually are bearing a heavy brunt, especially right now during the COVID period. Some of the main issues that they're going through is one, depression. Many of the young people are actually facing depression. And this depression is brought about by probably anxiety, probably the lack of support, psychosocial support, the lack of the society not understanding the needs of the youth. Then the other thing they're suffering is called substance abuse disorders. Because now when the youth have hopelessness, when the youth are anxious about the future, which looks very gleam and doom for them, they tend to start looking for comfort zones, things that they can use so that they can feel okay. And you know that's where you have the alcohol abuse. By the way, in Kenya, 18 to 29-year-olds are the most that abuse alcohol. And this is where we have most of the problem. And the after effects of this alcohol is that, one, there are many serious health damages that the youth face when they drink this alcohol. Secondly, also their family breakages and their relationships. Also their working capacity is brought down. So therefore, this youth is not able to function optimally.
Okay, Edward, allow me to pause you there. I want to bring in Dr. Catherine Siengo Mutisia, who's a psychiatrist. And just to hear from you, Daktari, you know, we have Edward who's highlighted quite a number of issues that the youth go through, one of them being depression and anxiety. And particularly, say, depression is one that for a long time was associated with the older generation, particularly because they're going through maybe, you know, different things. But now we are seeing it more in the youth. Do we have a reason that we can attribute as to why we have younger people getting depressed at younger ages now?
Thank you very much, Michael. We know that by age 14, most of the mental illnesses, including depression, have set in. So 14 is still in the childhood age, beginning of adolescence. We could say that with the COVID-19 children staying at home, we are seeing more rates of depression. But again, as communities become more urbanized versus settling in the rural areas, we find there are more stressors in the cities. And so we are seeing high rates of depression, and also children and adolescents can access information online, and they're able to even read about some of these problems and unfortunately also look at some ways people have dealt with depression in unhealthy ways.
Many guardians and parents would be concerned as to why a child would be depressed. You'd imagine that, you know, majority of them, not all of them, but majority of them have, you know, their main needs taken care of, their basic needs. So what is it that would be causing a child to be depressed?
Material things are not all what children need. We are seeing a lot of pressure from our education system. a lot of pressure from social media, and a lot of bullying in schools as well. We know that there are children who are also abused at home physically, and sadly some sexually abused. We know that traumas which would affect adults, like what you're going through, the period you're going through, will also affect children. So there are many things. As much as children don't need to go to work or don't need to provide, or they have all the material things, we need to listen to them, and we need to find out how they are feeling, because they also go through their own stressors.
Back to you on solutions in just a bit, but let me bring in John Camara now, who's the founder of Afya Record. And John, you, through your organization or Afya Record, I saw that there was a reason or a need for you to bring the youth together. Before we come to that actual, occasion that's going to be bringing them back together, what is it that made you, or what's the red flag that made Afya Record think that this was important?
Thank you very much. So for me, it's basically, I always look at the purpose of what is happening. And the story for my interest in, it was a couple of months ago, I was somewhere with a few young people, and I saw one of the young people playing music, brought a guitar. And I was talking to her, and she started telling me about the problems that she was mentally facing, some of the depression models that she was going through, some of the things that she could not speak about, but she was talking to me as a stranger because she thought she'd never see me again. And she can't tell her parents because it's a taboo, and everybody expects her to. And she said her friend just died from committing suicide a couple of months back. So that really bothered me a lot. So this is literally a problem that we all have, but more importantly, the young people have this problem, and because of the way society has capped the fact that mental health is not an issue, you just have to be strong and get on with life, and these things are not an African problem. That was my first challenge, to say, okay, how can we become part of this bigger conversation and see the little that we can do to ignite, and help some of the folks who are already doing a lot of great stuff in mental health. So that was really my interest in and how I got involved, because it was a real situation that hit me very, very hard in a couple of months back.
And that will come back to Battle Zamta, which is literally more of a solution that you're looking towards having that. Edward, how do we identify some of these challenges, particularly on the youth? And my concern on the youth is because of what's happening currently. But how do we identify a child who is depressed, a child who possibly is suffering from anxiety, a child who maybe is not at peace with themselves or even with their environment? How do we identify that?
All right, there are several ways how you can identify that, especially the main one is through the behavior pattern. And rightfully, like as the psychologist just mentioned, right now, children are in holiday. Not in holiday, sorry, children are at home because of COVID-19. And this is something that has never happened before. So you would be able to monitor your child's behavior and see different traits that they are having. For example, they could start hiding, they could be quiet, they could be isolated, they could be using substance abuse, they could be hiding in various areas, they could be hiding in corners in the estate. You'd realize the language they are talking, perhaps they're becoming more rude, they look like they're becoming truant, they look like they are becoming antisocial. These are some of the patterns that you can identify with a child and be able to see that indeed there is something wrong with this child.
All right, Edward,
allow me to highlight here.
Allow me to pose you, and maybe this is because maybe bias is because I'm a father of 2 children who are around teenage going on to adult, but the traits and qualities that you're bringing up are also, normal with teenagers. They sometimes want to, kind of just be on their own. They want to find their identity, and as a result, they may look like they're being rebellious. So how do we identify that this is not just the normal teenager behavior, and it is now gone to an extent of possibly being a mental issue?
Yes, indeed, mental health is something that is not easy to diagnose. As you've rightfully mentioned, that normally with teenagers, this is how they would normally behave at that age. But with deep concern and you monitoring the child, you would be able to see that the patterns are actually becoming very erratic and are going out of bound. And this is a sign that you'll be able to see, hold on, you get your child or your two kids, like you just mentioned, and you interrogate them further. And then you also counsel them and tell them, look, I can understand perhaps you're going through hardship, and this is how we need to deal with it. Because the main thing that is happening right now when youth are facing depression and anxiety is that the parents are not understanding their children. The parents are or society generally is not taking time to interrogate and understand the real issues that these children are going through. Because like John just mentioned right there, mental health is like, hey, just be strong, get along with it, and we move on. So it's all about monitoring your child and being sincere with your child. And this is how your child will be able to open up to you and your teenager and your youth and tell you, Dad, Mom, this is exactly what I'm going through. And you know, some of these things can even be a teenager is going through that experience of puberty where they have thoughts of sexual mentality or sexual thoughts, and they have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. These are things that many teenagers would not sit down with the parents. And you'd find that such a thing that happened there, and then the teenager kind of broke up their relationship with their girlfriend or their boyfriend, this is something they would not talk about. But with deep interrogation and with deep intentional concern, I'm sure as a parent, it is your duty as a duty bearer to be able to identify this mental illness before it gets out of hand, so that you can take them to a counselor, and the counselor then will be able to apply the skills of counseling.
All right, Dr. Mutisia, Dr. Catherine Mutisia, question is, do you agree that those are some of the things that we need to, are there red lights that one can look at? Are there certain things that you can say, now this really differentiates between just an adolescent and one who has mental issues?
Thank you very much. When we are diagnosing mental illness, and in this case, depression, we have to notice that it's affecting the child's or the person's social interactions, or if it's a child, schoolwork, or if it's an adult work, whether it's affecting their daily. So if we find that this child is withdrawing to the point where it's affecting even their physical growth, they are not having meals, they are not interacting with other people, and it causing problems in the interactions at home, then we get worried that this child could be having depression. On the other hand, a child who is going to school and they are not able to participate in school, or sometimes they would not be able to even go to school, then we start getting worried. But it's about considering the age of the child and whether the child is behaving as per how another child of that age would behave. And we can categorically tell what is being caused by the normal identity issues of teenage, and what is being caused by depression. And that's why you need to have a professional evaluate the child.
All right, and bringing in John now. John Camara, after your experience meeting this lady who was going through an issue, you took a step ahead that many maybe may not have done. Tell us a little bit about that, and what now, off your record, and what you're doing to address this issue of mental health in the youth.
So thank you very much. One of the important things in life is always finding how you get a conversation started accurately, because the acceptance of reality is the start of the opportunity to, participate in solving a problem. So, and mental health, just digressing for a second, doesn't necessarily just rest with the youth. It rests with older people, it rests with the mama boggers, it rests with the men, the women, it rests with me as an entrepreneur, because it's all different types of issues that we suffer every day, and we cannot speak about it. And that's where I really thought, okay, how can we get a community that it makes up the largest population of our economy to start speaking about it, then maybe everybody else will feel free enough to start also talking about it. And in that as well, we kind of looked at, okay, the youths. So how do we get them to open up in this conversation? As Dr. Catherine has said, we need to find a way to open up. I'm not a doctor. So I thought about this girl had a guitar, and she was using music as an expression to express herself, even though people didn't understand that. So that kind of was a light bulb moment. How do I connect what these kids like, what these youth are trying to do, entertainment, music, spoken words, things that they enjoy doing, where they get their escape from. How do we bring it in as the tool and then allow them to begin to talk about their state of mind freely and some of the stuff that they're going to. And this is really how Battle Zamtak came into life. It's taking entertainment as a tool, because a lot of young people use entertainment as a way of expression and something they also use to generate wealth or other things they do, and then framing it around a mental health awareness campaign to start a conversation, which is a year-long program, and also fits right into the SDG 3, which, because we're a health company, we're a health tech business. So how do we always find a way to provide services to the community that we're serving, especially looking at things that are unspoken and unsaid that are causing so much problem across, different homes. So that is really how the idea came together, and we decided to use music, spoken word, dance, the energy of young people in these places. And we talked to a few different partners, Telcom, CFK, and so many, and everybody sort of saw the same idea. And we thought, well, let us launch a year-long campaign starting from the 10th of October all the way to the 9th of October 2021.
Right.
And that's really the idea.
Okay. Let me come back to you, Dr. Mutisia. And other than depression, we have many other mental illnesses that are possibly very subtle, and not just for the youth, just like Mr. Camara has said. What are some of those, mental illnesses that we should be aware of, and possibly how to identify them?
Anxiety disorders are quite common, and for children, you will have children who have social phobia as well. In this period of COVID-19, we are seeing a lot of what we call obsessive compulsive disorder, where one would be obsessed as to whether they have cleaned their hands enough. Of course, we also have a lot of substance use. Now that when the period of lockdown, we know as much as the bars were closed, people would still buy alcohol and take at home. And for the young people, we are seeing a lot of use of cannabis. Weed, they think it's because it's legalized in some countries, it has no health effects. So we are seeing a lot of substance use. But with children also, we also see many who lack attention and some who are hyperactive, what we call ADHD. We also have severe mental illnesses, and some could even develop in childhood, like bipolar mood disorder could develop from the ages of 14 years onwards, where a child or a person would at times get depressed and sometimes get a high mood, what we call a manic episode. We also have severe illnesses like schizophrenia, where somebody seems to lose touch with reality. They might hear voices other people can't hear or see things other people can't hear. And again, also with the elderly, we see dementia, where people have memory loss, accompanied with sometimes depression, sometimes the psychosis. And there are quite many, including personality disorders, including autism disorders, which are diagnosable at childhood. Right. So there are quite many illnesses.
Okay, let me hear from Edward. How do we demystify and remove the negative approach to mental health? How do we make this a conversation that we can have freely in our sitting rooms, in our social gatherings, so that mental health is not viewed as something or someone who is mad per se? We look at it as somebody who's, lost it. How do we make this more palatable?
Thank you very much. One of the things first I would like to highlight is this. I take this opportunity to thank the task force on mental health, which is led by Frank Jenga, who is the chairman. They recently recommended that mental health be declared a national disaster, especially now during COVID-19. That move on its own is actually a good thing, because now we can now bring the discussion about mental health on the table. When I say the table, in the sitting room at home, in the bedroom at home, in the schools, in the public places, where people can now openly start discussing about these things. For example, even crime if you look at the rates of crime that is happening in Kenya, you will find out that there is something to do with a subtle mental disorder. As the psychiatrist has just pointed out, that substance abuse has become higher in Kenya. Why? Because young people do not have jobs. There is lack of job creation. And yet these same young people have to pay for rent, have to lift up their family standard. Therefore, if they don't have any other option, they take the drugs, and then with the drugs gives them a disorder, and they start committing crime. So now, what John is talking about, battles Zamta, that is one of the ways to demystify this, so that the youth can be brought about on the table, and they can listen and begin to share with the public and the people how they are feeling inside. And it's through art, it's through music, it's through rap, it's through hip hop. That is the only language that we can be able to access. And also, government needs to invest a lot more in this. For example, take a child who is suffering from mental health. Do you know how expensive it is to access mental health services? It is very, very expensive. I can say on average it's between 30,000 to 50,000 for the treatment in Kenya. How many young people can afford that? Not very many. So this is a discussion, and I can see even the government of Kenya, through the president, why he formed the task force in 2019, this is a discussion they want to bring on board.
Okay.
Now, to conclude my point on that, we are teaming up together with Afia Record as counselors, youth counselors, to do the one-year program, and we are calling upon the youth counselors who are in Kenya, in Nairobi, to come and join us so that we can go on the ground and demystify what mental health is. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And Dr. Mutisia, maybe just to get your closing remarks in terms of solutions, and to anybody who may have concerns over a relative, a friend, a parent, whoever that may have mental issues, where do they go and what do they do?
I would like to tell Kenyans that mental illnesses are quite common, but they are treatable. And people need to come out, go to the nearest health facility, reach out to the nearest counselor or psychologist or any other mental health provider, or if it's in school, reach out to a teacher. We know that part of the guidelines, we've been told that schools must have a mechanism to support the children's mental health and emotional health. Let them identify and refer appropriately. And we know that there's no health without mental health. So even if you're feeling physically well and your mental health is not good, you will not be able to reach your potential. You will not be able to adjust to stressors. So I would call upon people to come out and bring their loved ones for assessment. You'd rather be told that there's nothing to worry about than to stay at home with somebody who is not looking well.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Camara, as we wind up, your closing remarks and also just a very brief, reminder of that Afia Records, event that's going to be taking place.
Just a closing remark is because mental health, especially with this COVID issue, has affected so many people, and you even have things like compulsive aggressive behavior in relationships, and so many men as well are going through a lot of socioeconomic issues that is causing them to have depression, which then leads into a number of different verticals of mental illnesses, which they don't even know that it's actually leading to mental illness. So even our women as well too. So it's really, really important, as Dr. Catherine said, that we really appreciate that this is happening in real time. On the other side, so what we're doing with Battles Zamta is bringing the youth together, allowing them to use entertainment, their skill, their talents to talk about mental health, to start the conversation, to create an awareness, and also be able to share the message across other young people and sustain that, and also try to find a way to provide experts like Dr. Catherine Edward, who will come in and also, talk to them, give them free advice using the Afia Record app and other partners as well. And, consistently try to also find ways how we can encourage them to balance out their mental health and real life, and how we also use the appreciation of their talent to help drive a consistent conversation that helps them to sort of know that we are all part of this problem and we're all part of the solution. So on the 10th of October, live on the Afia Record YouTube channel, we have Battles Zamta with almost 30 of the best young people in Gitterai and Camara who have shown up to talk about mental health, and this particular, some interesting spoken word campaign that you would really, really love. So
All right,
tune
thank
in
you.
and support all these young people.
All right, thank you very much. That's John Camara, the founder of Afya Record. We also had Dr. Catherine Siengo Mutisi, who's a psychiatrist, and Edward Muitu, who is a counselor. Thank you very much for joining us this morning to have that discussion on mental health. For now, we're going to take a short break. It's 5 minutes after 8, but do stay with us. When we come back, Trix is going to be looking at some of the concerns that we have as a country, and a reminder of that question that we have this morning. Do you think the strict measures to curb political violence are targeted at specific politicians? And this, of course, is following up with the incident that took place in Murang'a, but also the advisory given